Coming up on No Pulp, it's tourney time, and we talk about everything from Cinderellas to the excitement level of this year's slate of games.
And it might be all we're watching, but it's not all that's happening. College lacrosse is well into its season, and we'll break down who, if anybody, is top dog on the field, and Tate Martell has been granted immediate eligibility. We've got all of that and so much more. No Pulp starts right now.
I got this, I'm in it. I'm hella filthy, so I got this, I'm winning.
Welcome into No Pulp. Adam Unger and Zach Lang here with you. Now, in case your head has been buried under the sand or something for the last week, you know. March Madness is here, and we're down from 68 teams to 16. And Zach, there's really only one Cinderella left.
Yeah, it's the only one that's double digits, and that's Oregon. Oregon's pretty good, I gotta say. I had my doubts, but they've got to be one of the best teams in this tournament right now.
Well, they're one of the best teams in the tournament right now, but in the regular season, you look at what they had to go through. You could pretty much write them off. Here's the thing. Losing Bol, 9 games into the season, this is someone who could have easily been a 20-point, 10-rebound guy, an NBA lottery pick, and then to come back from the depths and still make an NCAA tournament, still win the Pac-12, even though as a conference it's pretty weak, but at the same time, that's still a feat for Oregon to really hang their hat on. I still think they're a Cinderella.
Yeah, and a lot of people, they also didn't even think Oregon had it in them to get past Wisconsin in the first round. To be honest, I picked it in my bracket. Like, I know it's a weird brag, but like they won 8 straight games coming into this tournament. That includes the Pac-12 tournament, and basically the only reason they are in is because they won their conference championship. But this team is good. Like, they had the momentum to carry them through, and the fact that some people wrote them off early, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, running them off early is one thing, because I think when you look at a 5-12, that's something that could really go either way. But at the same time, you have to think about how long can Peyton Pritchard keep this up, you know what I mean? He has just been unreal throughout the Pac-12 tournament, knocking Washington, someone who was in the top 25 for most of the year, mainly just because you needed someone in there from the Pac-12, knocking them all the way down to a 9 seed. Oregon wasn't really even in consideration. I'm not even sure if they would have made the NIT had they not at least gotten to the final against Washington. Even if they beat Washington, that's still up in the air, but at that point you have the automatic bid. So I think they have just been on an incredible run. I'm interested to see how much further it can go.
Yeah, especially because of the fact that Bol hasn't been with them for a while. Once he was out, a lot of people started counting them out. But moving on, you know, the net rankings, they're pretty important, right? Or are they? Adam, what are your thoughts on that?
They're far from perfect, just like any other selection system for anything. You look across all NCAA sports, anytime a selection committee is involved. You take a look at some of these. NC State, 33rd in the net rankings, not given a bid. Clemson, 35th, not given a bid. Now, the ACC was the strongest conference this season, and you couldn't put 2/3 of the conference in. But here's the thing. Houston was number 4 overall in the net rankings, and they were a 3 seed. Wofford, 13 overall in the net rankings, and they're a 7 seed. When you bring offensive and defensive efficiency into this, you're pretty much taking away strength of schedule. It's easy to have great efficiencies at both ends of the floor when you are playing such a weak schedule like a team like Houston or Wofford or Buffalo, who was 15th overall in the net rankings but came in at a 6 seed. So obviously it's not going to weigh in number for number to fill out every at-large bid.
And I personally think strength of schedule is way more important than the net rankings, and NC State honestly proves that. We heard from Jim Boeheim a little bit on Selection Sunday. He touched on it, as well as others, that strength of schedule is incredibly important. He basically said the team didn't help itself with its non-conference schedule. They played teams like Maryland Eastern Shore, UNC Asheville, St. Peter's, Western Carolina, and USC Upstate. Those teams are not going to get you in the NCAA tournament. I don't care if your net ranking is 33rd.
I don't even know what USC Upstate is.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel some of these colleges, they might as well be made up because we haven't even heard about them. But the fact is, even their Power 5 teams that they played in non-conference, Wisconsin, they lost to. Vanderbilt, the worst team in the SEC. Penn State, arguably the worst team in the Big Ten. They simply didn't help themselves.
Yeah, so the selection added a little bit of a new wrinkle, a lot of interest there as they filled out those 68 teams, and we've already talked about our Cinderellas, or lack thereof, and this is the tournament of the top seeds. Just a 5 seed and a 12 seed are the unexpected teams. Zach, is this tournament boring?
No. A lot of people are saying it's boring, but that's just because the 1 seeds are doing what they're expected to do. They're expected to advance because they are 1 seeds,
And the 2
and they
seeds,
are playing
and
the
the 3
weaker
seeds.
seeds. Yes, all these seeds are advancing, but that's because these are some of the strongest top seeds we have seen in a long time. And the NCAA tournament in itself is inherently not boring. Whenever can you watch 4 games at once that are all exciting when every team is on an equal level playing field to advance to a championship?
Especially when you're sitting at work on a Thursday afternoon or a Friday afternoon, just looking for some sort of escape. You get that out of March Madness, but here's the thing. My entire point is if you're watching the games, if you're seeing the games unfold on the court as they go, so many one-point games, there's still so much madness. Yeah, everybody who was supposed to win has won, with the exception of Auburn, kind of they're a 5, and Oregon, who we've already talked about, is on an incredible run. But you look at some of these games. Duke UCF, 1 point game.
Touch on that,
Auburn,
yeah.
New Mexico State, 1 point game. Maryland was in 2 one-possession games before they got bounced by LSU in the round of 32. If you're watching these games, it's exciting. If you just look at the surface of it, you look at a bracket, you say, all right, yeah, everybody who's supposed to be winning is winning. This is boring. No. If you see these games,
yeah,
it's incredible.
And the one thing I want to touch on is it's not even just the teams, it's the players. Ja Morant was a fantastic player in the first round.
There's a
he had a
ton of star
triple-double,
power in
the
this.
first triple-double since Draymond Green way back in the day when he was still in college. So it's not even just we're watching these teams, we're watching some really cool players. But, you know, coming up, immediate eligibility in college football has Adam fuming, and find out who's the latest name in the transfer portal, and we discuss should he play this season. This is No Pulp.
But the best place to start is in the forest.
I spy something beginning with S.
Snow.
No.
Snow-covered trees.
Nothing to do with snow.
Head outside to discover incredible animals and beautiful plants that come together to create an unforgettable adventure.
Wow.
So grab your loved ones
Don't even.
and explore a world of possibilities.
Come on, this way.
Visit discovertheforest.org to find the closest forest or park to you.
You've messed up your son's haircut.
Mom?
Do you A, try to fix it,
Like it never happened.
B, work with what you got, or C, show solidarity?
Thank you, baby.
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Welcome back to No Pulp. Zach Lang with Adam Unger here, and let's talk college football, get away from basketball. Tate Martell recently transferred to Miami from Ohio State and actually got cleared to play immediately. Adam, what are your thoughts?
You already know my thoughts on this. We've gotten to talk about this every single time. Look at that quarterback carousel. Justin Fields transferred from Georgia and to Ohio State, and because of that, Tate Martell leaves from Ohio State to go to Miami. Now, Justin Fields allegedly had to endure racism and racial slurs, which is not okay on any college campus, so he was able to get the waiver through that. Kelly Bryant, Jalen Hurts, Alex Hornibrook, all grad transfers.
Yeah.
But Tate Martell is just leaving because he has to fight for a starting job.
But did you hear the actual reason as to why he transferred?
Why?
The supposed reason why is because of Ohio State's new head coach, Ryan Day, did not have a spot on the roster for him. And for me, the reason why I think this is perfectly okay is because quarterbacks go to college to play football. If he doesn't have a spot on the Ohio State roster and Miami's quarterback just graduated and they had the 12th worst offense in the ACC, why should he not be allowed to play immediately?
If that rug was actually swept out from under him like that, I can start to see where you're going with it. But at the same time, he comes in, Justin Fields announces that he's coming to Ohio State.
Yeah.
Tate Martell comes out and says, this is a complex system. You're going to have to learn the system. I'm ready for the competition. Week later, see ya.
Yeah.
Taking my talents to South Beach.
Yeah, and he
What
should.
are you teaching kids to do? You're not
teaching
going to be
kids-
able to just roll over and go somewhere else anytime you face adversity.
But here's the
You know
thing.
what I mean?
What-
There's one type of adversity off the field that Justin Fields had to face, and there's a type of adversity on the practice field, in the film room, on the field that Tate Martell is afraid of, and that's why he's going to
But
Miami.
here's the thing, it's not even about the reason as to why they should be granted eligibility. For me, it's more just like the fact that they are a student athlete. When a student goes to a school, they want to get an education for a certain reason. If they feel that school does not grant them the education that they desire, they are allowed to transfer and take classes immediately. College football players go to school to play football. What is the point of, if they can't feel that they have an opportunity there, they should be allowed to transfer and finish out there.
What about programs being opportunists? So take Clemson, for example. Hunter Johnson right, was supposed to be the guy. Are you going to go out and not try to get Trevor Lawrence because Hunter Johnson is supposed to be your guy? Or are you going to continue to try to add more talent?
I don't know.
Think about it. Just saying. Moving on to better sports. College lacrosse is all over the place this season, and from the outset, there was just something different about 2019 and its parodies.
Yeah.
Are there any teams head and shoulders above everybody else?
For me, it's Ohio State. I know that sounds a little bit crazy because of their weak schedule, but being completely honest, I think this is the most parity we have seen in college lacrosse in a couple of years. And Ohio State's the only team left in Division I with a perfect record. I think they should be in the conversation.
I'm going to one-up you on the parity conversation. I think this might be the most parity that lacrosse has seen ever. You look at the rise of Towson. You look at the rise of High Point. 2 wins over ACC teams, Duke and UVA. You might as well add one more into the fold and have a 6-team tournament with High Point having that much success. Towson stealing the victory of Baltimore over Loyola, over Hopkins, 2 long-time proven programs. And you already mentioned the strength of schedule for Ohio State. Who have they played?
Notre
Hofstra.
Dame. They beat Notre Dame
But hear me
in
out.
overtime.
Hofstra, Bucknell,
Yeah. Lacrosse
Cleveland
schools.
State. The Big
Okay.
Ten is hurting itself, and here's why.
They beat Notre
backload
Dame,
the Big
number
Ten,
12
the
team
entire
in the
back
country.
10 backloads its entire conference schedule, so we have no idea how good Maryland, Ohio State, Penn State, or Johns Hopkins are in relation to each other, because none of them have played each other yet. It's kind of sprinkled in, as opposed to having everything all at once. That's what the ACC does. That's a better way to do it because you can establish that strength throughout the season instead of hoping that it all works out in the end.
Okay, but looking at this Ohio State team, they still have to play Rutgers, Penn State, Johns Hopkins, Maryland, and Michigan. They have a lot of chance to still prove themselves.
I forgot
if
about
that,
Michigan.
Yes, if that undefeated record still stands up to what this team is. They also had a game canceled against Denver, which really, in my opinion, should have solidified them as a top 5 team in the country. But right now they stand at 4, so I think they
depending
belong
on the
in
result,
the
they
conversation.
could have with Denver. But at the same time, if Denver comes out and does what they're supposed to do, a little bit of a different story. But if you tune in for basketball, don't worry, we're going right back to it. Zach and I will pick our all-time favorite March Madness moments right after this.
I see you mobbing over her. Let's go. Let's mob. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, we mobbing. Come on, girl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl.
With the groove, show proof, keep it smooth as I bust the move. Hey, yo, step in swiftly, with me, keep up. If not, just stop, pop a squat, put your feet up. Read up, pay attention, listen to the melody. Remember what you heard, got my words to the spell of me. Top notch, got them all jumping like hopscotch. Or jumping rope like double dutch in the air. Show me what you got, keep it hot like the heater. You thinking you a treat, cause you're sweet, but I'm sweeter. Leader of the pack, cause they all stay behind me. I'm old school, you don't skip tracks, you rewind me. Find me, working on my craft.
Welcome back to No Pulp. Zach Lang, Adam Unger here with your best all-time March Madness moments. Zach, why don't you start us off?
Well, let's rewind it just honestly 1 year. Let's talk about 2018. UMBC, the number 16 seed, pulling off an upset on the number 1 team, or one of the number 1 teams in the tournament, Virginia. Honestly, it's the best upset of all time, and also created the birth of one of the best Twitter accounts of all time, in my opinion. But also, you can't forget about the Fighting Sister Jeans. Loyola Chicago enters the tournament as an 11 seed, and they make it all the way to the Final Four, busting every single bracket along the way. Honestly, I don't think it could get better than last year.
Hey, my bracket got busted by Loyola Chicago for sure. I'm going to take you into the Wayback Machine, 1975. John Wooden announces his retirement. He had just had 1 year away from national championship. NC State had just broken off UCLA's unprecedented run that we will never, ever see again. But in 1975, his final season, he wasn't not going to come away with the championship. UCLA gets it done one more time for arguably the greatest head coach in college basketball history. 95-82 on the back of Richard Washington. Listen to this. 28 points and 12 rebounds. It was a storybook ending, for one of the best dynasties in college sports that we have ever seen. Probably the best, I think.
John Wooden, definitely, certainly one of the best basketball coaches in the history of ever. But also, speaking of best coaches, let's talk about the guy who's been here at the helm for 43 seasons. How about Jim Boeheim in Syracuse? In 2003, they get the program's first and current only national championship ever. That 2003 run, absolutely spectacular in my opinion. They didn't even win the Big East tournament that year. They still made a run into the tournament. tournament, and they beat Kansas in the national championship.
Helps when you have some guy named Carmelo Anthony.
Yes, Carmelo Anthony averaged over 20 points per game in that tournament, and in my opinion, he is one of the top 3 best players in tournament program history, if not one of the best.
Program history, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. That makes a little more sense. I was thinking about some other top ones all time.
There's some other guys in there, don't you worry.
A little bit, yeah. So moment number 2 for me, I'm gonna keep in the Wayback Machine. I'm going 1982.
Wow, you're running it way back.
Michael Jordan, I wanted to go before my lifetime. Michael Jordan and James Worthy's UNC squad tops Georgetown for Dean Smith's first championship as UNC's head coach. Matt Liberman, another host on this show, would absolutely love this. Battle of the One Seas, and to boot, UNC coming out of the East, Georgetown coming out of the West. A big settlement to go between the ACC and the Big East in those conferences as well. And the steal, too, at the end of the game to ice it. James Worthy misses both free throws, still just a 1-point game, and Michael Jordan hits the first of so many game winners in his collegiate and professional careers. Just an unbelievable championship game.
Hard to talk about best moments without the best player in basketball.
That's true.
Yeah. But, coming up, Luke McGrath joins us for Tourney Talk, and we discuss who wears the Cinderella slipper this year and take a look at other tournaments that are happening right now. Stay tuned. This is No Pulp.
This is the story of a boy who didn't talk for a long time. The boy liked things to always be the same. Any changes would scare and upset him. The unknown was an unfriendly place. The boy was very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where they couldn't get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. He wasn't trying to be mean, it just made him feel uncomfortable. Sometimes he would flap his arms again and again.
One day, I found out I have something called autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I found my voice and learned all the ways I could live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
Welcome back to No Pulp. Zach Lang with Adam Unger, and we now welcome Luke McGrath to the stage, who's set to tell us everything about March Madness across all tournaments. But let's talk about the big dance itself. Now, Luke, who do you think is the best Cinderella team and where they're going to be going?
Well, the best Cinderella team, I'm sorry I don't have a better answer for you guys, but it is number 12 Oregon. I mean, the rest of the teams in the Sweet 16, it's pretty chalky. All 1s, 2s, and 3s made it, 3 out of 4s with 1 5-seed in Auburn making it, and then there's Oregon, so it has to be them. But they've been very impressive now, including the end of the regular season SEC tournament and then those 2 wins in the tournament. It's 10 wins in a row. They've been extraordinary, and Pac-12 having a down year, but still tournament champions, and that defense is unstoppable, only allowing 54 points in each of their wins over a good Wisconsin team and a very good 31-win team in UC Irvine. And, you already mentioned it a little bit, but with that injury to Bull, a lot of people kind of wrote them off. And, he was a sensation, possibly going to be an NBA lottery pick. And, with that, they ran their entire offense through him. So when he went down, they really had to readjust and change as a team. But I give a lot of credit to Dana Altman, their head coach, and Peyton Pritchard. I mean, incredible run in the tournament so far. 19 points, 8 assists, 5 rebounds in the first one over Wisconsin, 18.7 assists in the win over UC Irvine. But let's also show some love to Kenny Wooten, the rim protector who's been the forefront of this defensive force. 4 blocks, 9 points, 6 rebounds in the win over Wisconsin, 7 blocks, 11 points, 8 rebounds in the win over UC Irvine. They've got a tough matchup in Virginia coming up here on Thursday, but we'll see if the Cinderella run continues.
They've both been huge, and sorry we kind of stole a little bit of the thunder earlier in the show. Slim pickings on the Cinderella. Sure. There's some slim pickings on this, too. You already mentioned all 3 1 seeds, all 3 2 seeds, all 3 3 seeds. What high seed, high is relative now, has disappointed you most?
Yeah, so, you hit the nail on the head. My biggest disappointment is the 7 seed, not because of, some heartbreaking or, jaw-dropping loss, but what could have been. I took number 7 seed Cincinnati. They lost to Iowa 79-72, but what was so exciting about what could have been is how this road was set up for them. Their first 2 games were going to be in Columbus, Ohio, only 110 miles from Cincinnati, and then their second round games in Louisville, only 102 miles from Cincinnati, just northeast or southwest on Route 71 for those worrying about the highways. But listen, I'm of the belief that Tennessee is a beatable team. Some people don't agree with that. Colgate, hung around for a while. They almost blew a 25-point lead against Iowa. And then they came out so hot against Iowa. Give a lot of credit to Fran McCaffrey for finding a way to adjust in that team. But they were up by 11 late in the first half and then really just crumbled in the second half. Iowa shot over 65% from the field in the second half and over 60% from three. And, when a team gets out in the tournament, sometimes you just got to tip your cap.
All right, now we've talked a lot about the big dance for the men, but let's talk about the big dance for the women. A lot of teams doing really well in there. Who you got in the Final Four?
Once again, I'm sorry I don't have any crazy hot takes here for you. It's pretty chalky. I got 1 seed Notre Dame, 1 seed Louisville, 2 seed Oregon making a run on both sides of the NCAA tournament, and then I got the other 1 seed Baylor making the big dance as well. And I have them as my national champions. I have them beating Notre Dame in the title game. I mean, Baylor all season 31-1, 4 players averaging 11 points or more, top 8 scoring offense in the country and scoring defense in the country. Nobody else can boast that mark. There's a lot of other really good, talented teams out there. Some people think in UConn, we saw Syracuse lose earlier tonight, but ultimately I think it's going to be pretty chalky when it all comes down to it.
Shifting back to men's basketball now, there's some other tournament going on. Who do you have as your NIT champion?
Yeah, what's that one called again? Yeah, I'm an ACC homer here. I'm going with NC State. A lot of people think that they should have made the tournament. You guys alluded to it earlier with the net rankings, 33 overall. But they had a nice little run to end the season. They defeated Clemson in the ACC tournament. They did lose in the next round, but they defeated Hofstra, defeated Harvard, and I think Lipscomb's not going to be too much of a challenge for them. And I watched the post-game presser from that Harvard win, and it really looks like this team has bought into the NIT tournaments. A lot of times, especially a power conference team, you see them get upset pretty early because they don't quite seem to be that interested. But this team is playing hard. They got 13 offensive rebounds in the second half to take down Harvard, and this is a team that really struggles on the boards. I want to cut them some slack. Everybody saw that loss earlier in the year when they only had 24 points. You guys alluded to some of the lower level teams they played this year, but this is an offense that when they get hot, they can really put up some big numbers, and I think they're peaking at the right time to at least get, secondary prize in winning the NIT tournament.
Now, if we were playing Mad Libs and I had to guess your word, chalky. Luke, thanks so much, as always. Appreciate it. Coming up on No Pulp, Zach and I have our game picks for the Sweet 16. Stick around. Home stretch here on No Pulp. He's Zach Lang. I'm Adam Unger. Now, for all the star power in the tournament this year, there's one name we've never mentioned, Ja Morant. So when you look at his performance against Marquette and against Florida State, did he do enough to kind of shake the small school label?
Honestly, yeah, I'm going to say so. I'm not going to lie. I had Marquette beating Murray State in my bracket, and that's because I honestly thought going into that game, Marquette had a better overall team and a better overall squad than Murray State did. I thought Murray State was simply Ja Morant and company, and honestly, they proved me wrong. Ja Morant was fantastic, and honestly, he helped all those players around him get better and advance into the round of 32.
I think and company is a little relative when you have 16 assists in the round of 32. He has been absolutely unbelievable. The first triple-double, you already mentioned it, since Draymond Green with Michigan State back in 2012. Draymond Green doing pretty well for himself now. Now he's playing at Michigan State. That's no Murray State. You know what I mean? The Ohio Valley Conference, I don't even know if I can name 3 other teams in that conference.
I can.
Aside from Murray State, and I only know that because of this kid. And he has just been incredible. His court vision is unprecedented, but I see the argument. It's the Ohio Valley Conference. Now he's put up against a legit Big East team and a legit ACC team. I don't know what more you need from him.
So that being said, I want to ask you, do you think his game translates better to the NBA than Zion Williamson, who basically right now is the unprecedented #1 overall pick?
We were talking about this a little earlier. I'm going to stick with this. I think Ja Morant, because of his court vision and because he plays a game that already fits the NBA.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That already fits the NBA. because of that, he's going to have a better rookie year than Zion Williamson.
I can agree with that.
Zion Williamson can beat the NBA into whatever mold he wants it to be in order for him to succeed.
But those biceps easily, yeah.
But here's my thing. When you look at Zion Williamson, he already proved me wrong once. I wasn't buying into him at the beginning of the year because, yeah, he's big, yeah, he's physical, but so is everybody in college, or so I thought at least. You know what I mean? You're not going to be dunking on high school kids that are our size.
Oh, certainly
You know what
not.
I mean? He's going up against other guys who are 6'8", 6'9", 220, 230.
My thing is...
And seeing him in person, it's unbelievable.
He's huge. But, like, in my opinion, like, Zion has the body to be the best NBA player in potentially history. I think he has a higher ceiling than John Morant. But as far as who's going to translate better to that game faster, I think John Morant is that guy.
Yeah, we're on the same page.
Granted, I still think John Morant isn't going to be drafted before Zion.
No way.
But he has the potential to impact a team very early on. My team would probably have to be the Chicago Bulls. If they move up into those lottery picks and they miss out on the Zion sweepstakes, John Morant is a guy that they could definitely have. Chris Dunn, he's not their point guard of the future. But imagine, if you will, a 1 and 2 of Ja and Zach LaVine. You're going to have a 1-2 guard combo that could easily tear up the East and make them an instant playoff team.
And that'll be good for a decade. But at the same time, I'm not really thinking about the Chicago Bulls. I'm thinking Zion, right, at number 1. We're not disputing that. Zion, number 1.
Zion's taking number 1
If I'm an
overall, whoever
NBA
gets that
GM
pick.
at number 2, my decision rests on what do I have on my team between RJ Barrett and John Morant.
Yeah.
RJ Barrett proved when Zion was out that he could still be just absolutely transformative as a player, at least at the collegiate level, on the biggest of stages as well. So at the same time, when you think about it, it's a matter of who you have. If you're the Phoenix Suns, you already have a shooting guard in Devin Booker. You already have a small forward in Josh Jackson. You're going to go John Morant. But if you have a hole at that slashing 2-3 spot, you're going to go RJ instead. I think it's a definite 2 and a definite 3 now, and then everything else is a tier down below that.
At that
but
point,
at the same time,
at that point, you're picking the best player that fits you, not the best player available. Now let's move on to some of the big games left in the tournament. We still got the Sweet 16 ahead of us, even though the majority of the games are practically done. But Adam, we still got 1 Duke and number 4 Virginia Tech. Who do you got in this one?
I just want to preface this by saying that all 4 of our game picks that our EP Bernie selected, I called all 4 of them in my bracket.
Okay.
So take my picks with a little bit of extra grain here. I've got Duke in this one. Zion is just too good. We already mentioned him when we were supposed to be talking about John Morant. He sneaks into any college basketball conversation that you can even think of because he has been so incredible this season. After seeing him play in person, he's going to will Duke to that win. He's willed Duke to the other 2 wins, barely squeaking it out over UCF.
Did he really will them to the win against UCF? In my opinion, like, I still have Duke
the
winning
unfriendly
this
rim
one.
helped.
Yeah, I was going to say, I still have Duke winning this one against Virginia Tech, but in all honesty, I think it's just because they're going to get lucky. That's how it was with UCF.
So now let's move on. Different quadrant of the bracket. Tennessee, Purdue. Who you got?
I'm going to go with Tennessee. I know they've been a little bit wish-washy towards this, later half of the season. They didn't win the SEC tournament championship, but in the end, I think they're good. I think they can pull it off.
2 for 2 based on my bracket. I've also got Tennessee, but Carson Edwards, he's scaring me a little bit,
All right, now we got number 3 Houston. We have number 2 Kentucky. 2 and 3 seeds. Who you got?
Don't discount the American. I took Houston in this, and this is the one that kind of had me on the fence. I was looking at this matchup for a long time going in, and at this point, I'm sticking with my gut because it's March. That's really all that you know at this point, aside from the fact that the net rankings aren't perfect.
Yeah, for me, my opinion is like Kentucky is one of those blue bloods. It's one of those great programs. You got to love it, but Houston, 3 losses this entire season. How can you go against them?
I mean, when you look at that loss against Seton Hall, too, I know it was a while ago, but that's bound to happen again. Last one, I know you've got a personal stake in this.
Yeah.
Texas Tech and Michigan.
See, my final 4 is the 3-1 seeds in the ACC because they're all too good. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I have a Big 12 team going to the Final 4, and that is Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech, easily the best team in the Big 12. Easily the best team. And Michigan, in my opinion, they simply have not proven themselves so far. They've lost to Michigan State 3 times. When the big moment comes for them and the spotlight is bright on them, they get blinded by it. They simply can't win. I got Texas Tech.
Maddie would be disappointed. I've got Michigan, and again, I called all of those games, so take my picks into consideration a little more. That's all the time we have here on No Pulp. I'll make sure that I get the pattern shirt memo next time around. Check out all of our content on CitrusTV.com. One last time, for our guests Luke McGrath and Zach Lang, I'm Adam Unger. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.